For those of you that don't know, my name is Margaret Chiracosta. I'm part of the sales and marketing team here at BDA, and I will be kicking things off for us today. Quick overview. We are going to go through a quick introduction and overview on Black Diamond, or BDA as we call it. Meet our team, and then we will jump into the customer panel and why you all are here today. And then we will save some time at the end, like I said, for some Q&A. So Black Diamond Advisory, or BDA, as you might hear us say, for those of you that we have not had the pleasure of working with, we are the largest global diamond partner. For those of you that don't know, that is the highest level of partnership at OneStream. We exclusively work with OneStream, so we are entirely dedicated to their success. We have over 120 experts that span 8 countries, so there's a whole lot of us. And we have executed over 350 successful OneStream implementations, a fact we are very proud of. In addition to all of this, we have 5 key differentiators, as you can see here in the middle, that really set us apart and make us who we are and are the foundation of what BDA is. One of them being the Expert Roundtable team, which is why you are all here today. Again, this is just a quick introduction. If you have any additional questions or want to learn more about BDA or any of our team members or any of the things that we have to offer, please do not hesitate to reach out. Happy to set up some time to discuss further. Kicking it over to our Expert Roundtable team. So here at BDA, we have an Expert Roundtable team. They are best of the best, some of whom are here today. I'll give them a chance to introduce themselves before we get started. And Damon, do you want to kick things off?
Sure. I'm Damon Mittlater. I'm one of the founders of Black Diamond and the Chief Technology Officer. I kind of serve in a capacity where aligning how to use the technology with, our delivery, and then also as well developing solutions upon the OneStream platform kind of falls under my purview. Varosha?
Yeah, thank you, Damon. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Varosha Mudli. I'm a director and solution architect here at Black Diamond Advisory. I've been with BDA for just over 3 years now, and I'm based in the Netherlands. So I specialize in the design and the delivery of OneStream consolidation solutions, and we help global organizations to build systems that are scalable, well-controlled, and give you full accuracy and transparency into your reporting and your financial close process. So good to meet you all, and thank you for joining. I'll hand over to Mike.
Thanks, Varosha. Hi, I'm Mike Vanoni, Senior Director here at Black Diamond Advisory. I've been with Black Diamond for 5 years now. Wow, almost. So time flies, but my main focus at BDA is helping our clients with the transformation that they go through when they start their OneStream journey, as they move through their OneStream journey, and really helping our customers align people and process to that technology stack and really kind of deliver high impact, maximize ROI of their investment in the platform.
I'm Ryan Rostovsky. I've also been at Black Diamond for almost 5 years now. I work on the consolidation side mainly, doing consolidation projects as a OneStream architect. My background was in corporate accounting, so kind of had that functional side, and then was able to, when I got to BDA, kind of combine it with the technical piece. And yeah, excited to have you guys here today. We have one bonus member, Daniel, who is not on the slide, so I will turn it over to him.
Thanks, Ryan. Wasn't expecting to introduce. Yeah, so Daniel Hobson, been here, pretty much as everyone has on this call from the start of BDA. So I set up BDA EMEA over here. I'm our global technical director, so really my role is working very closely with everyone on this call, just really overseeing and looking after BDA from a technical governance and quality perspective.
Thank you, everyone. So without further ado, we will kick it over to our customer panel. We have several customers here today that were so gracious to join us. We'll go one by one. They have some various topics about OneStream that they would like to cover, and our team will jump in. And again, feel free to put any questions you may have in the Q&A, and we will answer them as best we can, as quickly as we can. We will kick things off with Adrian.
Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where everyone's from. My name is Adrian Griffin. I'm the Financial Systems Manager and OneStream Administrator at Subaru. I've been at Subaru, I guess, about 6 years now. And from a OneStream perspective, we've been on OneStream, I would say, probably about 3 years now. Consolidations was what we went live with first, and it's the main product that we're using currently in a live capacity. But we have a number of other projects that are going on right now. We have a project that we've been working on, I guess, for about a year now, related to revenue recognition of our extended warranty products. It's a solution that was on an S-based environment, and we're looking to migrate it to OneStream. We're also recently working on an account reconciliation using the marketplace solution. So we're looking to integrate account reconciliation into our consolidations environment. And the last project we're started working on recently is related to our vehicle incentives. And again, this is a project that probably got kicked off a couple of months ago. It's something in a variety of access databases that we're looking to migrate. From a roundtable perspective, one of the things that I really enjoy out of it is just the exposure to the very many different aspects of OneStream. Like, I think regardless of how much time you spend with it, there's always something new and different that you can learn out of one of the sessions that you really weren't aware was available. So to me, just the exposure to the very different aspects and options within OneStream has been something that I've really enjoyed out of the roundtable discussions. Basically, the couple of topics that looking to get into right now are sort of drill back and derivative rules. So Margaret, did you want me to get into that now, or do you want to introduce the other members and then we'll swing back to the other or the topics of conversation?
Nope, go for it. All you.
Okay, so all right. Drill back rules. It's actually ironic that Daniel is on the call. Daniel was sort of the architect behind the solution that we came up with drill back. One of the things that we were looking for out of OneStream was a way to go back to the information in our Oracle ERP system as seamlessly as possible. We didn't necessarily want to bring in all of the detailed transactions from our ERP system into OneStream, but we wanted to try and have a mechanism that allowed users to basically go from the summary level trial balance data that they were working with in OneStream to basically be able to get some of the more detailed transactions. And the way we were able to achieve this, and it was basically Daniel that architected it, is they initially created a dashboard, and the dashboard at the top level sort of had a cube view that represented all of the balances that were in OneStream. By clicking on any one of those particular account values, the system sort of determined the various different dimension values, and it passed that back to a SQL statement, which then ran against a view, allowing the information to then be sent from our ERP system to the dashboard. And then from the dashboard, the user could then choose to export the information to Excel. And to me, one of the nicest features, or one of the things that I think the users are most excited about or really enjoy out of it, is related to our AP data. We were actually able to have a URL that had the invoice image on it. So from that perspective, a user is actually able to see the invoice image associated with the AP transaction. So it's been tremendous in terms of them from the OneStream environment being able to then see the detailed transactions in our Oracle ERP system that's sort of behind the information that results in the summary data getting into OneStream. So that dashboard has been something that we've been very happy with, and the users are getting a tremendous benefit out of. The second area that we leveraged, and it was functionality associated with something called derivative rules. As I said earlier, most of our loads are basically at a trial balance level, but there was some additional detail for revenue and cost of sales that we had an interest in getting at a different level of detail. And it sort of resulted in a secondary load into OneStream. But by using derivative rules, we were able to maintain the integrity of the trial balance data. So the way the derivative rule sort of works, and again, there are many attendees on here that can explain it in more detail, but it basically, for every amount that was being loaded that was providing the secondary level of detail, there's an exact offset that then applies so that when you're looking at your trial balance data, the trial balance data still ties to the trial balance, even though you've sort of supplemented your trial balance data with information from, a secondary source in our case, which was our project's subledger, giving us some detail on the revenue and giving us some detail on the cost of sales that did not exist in the general ledger.
Thanks, Adrian. And I will say, I feel like Adrian has a great technical understanding. I've always been really impressed at how into the details you've gotten from the client perspective.
Thank you.
So we talked a little bit about the technical side. We'll say kind of from more just a general perspective. So you guys have this really cool functionality with the drill back. How has your experience been with, getting users to adopt? I know I was back there a few months ago to do some training after the initial implementation, which we did a few years ago. So do you have any advice, on keeping users engaged and making sure they're, adapting to the new systems?
Right. Well, one of the things, and again, I sort of have been using SQL for a while, so I sort of had gotten comfortable in terms of being able to use SQL to sort of target some of the information. To me, what this was sort of allowing our users was to basically have that same functionality without necessarily having to use SQL. They were basically gaining insights into the details behind the information without necessarily having to write SQL queries to give them that information. And to me, the users sort of have taken to that. There seems like there's a desire in terms of, okay, I'm looking at this number, but I need to really know what's behind it anytime they're trying to figure out what's causing the variances and why are they seeing something that they didn't expect. And by being able to gain some insights in terms of the subledger data, I'm finding they're able to answer quite a lot of those questions themselves that formerly they would have gone to IT and basically said, hey, I need you to get the details for me on this particular thing. They're able to answer a lot of those questions themselves.
Yeah, and nice that they don't have to leave OneStream to do that too, right? They can do it right from the same place without having to leave and shell out to another tool, and just save them some time in that process as well.
Exactly. And the fact that then, yeah, and it depends on their query. Sometimes they could be, pulling 50 to 75,000 records back. It'll take, a minute to 90 seconds to basically do that, but then it sort of exports out to Excel seamlessly, and then the users can then sort of continue their analysis in terms of getting that data set down to something a little bit more manageable in terms of what they're looking for. As much as possible, I've sort of always encouraged them to try and do some of that stuff ahead of time in terms of setting up their parameters so that they're not bringing as much data back. But it's one of those things, there's still a learning curve in terms of understanding how to use some of the things to curtail the level of detail that's coming back. One of the things I've sort of told them is always start with sort of the general ledger detail and sort of get a feel for that, and then sort of go to the subledger detail as opposed to jumping right into the subledger detail, because a lot of times the general ledger detail may give you the answer that you're looking for.
And another cool thing that's kind of part of your guys' drawback is the ability to actually get invoice level detail. So from OneStream, you can actually click and view the system invoice, which is a really cool usage. I think you guys were the first place that we implemented that.
So yes, and again, the users are really happy with that, because a lot of times, they'll see the invoice transaction, but it doesn't quite give them the same understanding in terms of physically seeing the invoice image. It seems that there's additional levels of data that's being captured on that then a lot of times makes it a little bit easier for them to understand exactly what was behind the activity they're seeing. So yeah, the fact that we're actually able to capture the URL and basically, either from OneStream or from Excel, basically get into the invoice image is something that they really enjoy using as well.
For sure. Well, thank you, Adrian, so much. We will turn it over to Jen.
Hi, I'm Jen Schaeffer. I am the Corporate Consolidation Manager with Generac Power Systems. I've been with Generac about 8.5 years or so, and we went live about 3 years ago on OneStream. We started first with the consolidations and planning. We did compensation and CapEx, and then we built that out with Rex and TAS. We've also kind of worked, as a company, we like to do. We don't like people to kind of do for us. So we've been able to implement variance comments in the OneStream, Flash, various data boards, dashboards. And one of the key areas, pretty much since I had started with Generac, was the lack of visibility to FX exposures. There's always, for our treasury group, we operate in countries around the world. We have about 14 or 15 different currencies, and there was never a single view to see our FX exposure. Finally, with OneStream, there was actually the possibility to bring this data in. And the question that we kind of posed for the roundtable is, how can we bring in transactional totals in a currency other than the entity's functional currency? So that, with the help of the roundtable, we found that using the flow dimension. And then there's also, one of the things which you get with OneStream is you can do things, a lot of different ways. But the ability to kind of bounce ideas off on, cube setup, what's the most optimal, how can we best utilize, some of the OneStream resources to make sure that we're not kind of setting us up for failure. So what we did is this kind of became a project. It's been ongoing for a little over a year now. So we've taken some of our largest entities with different ERPs. So we're using SAP, Oracle, NetSuite, Epicor are the key ERPs. And so we've had to kind of, okay, what report detail do you have available? And then assess what's not in that report. So with SAP, we found that all the detail was right there by transactional total for the entity. But when we moved over to Oracle, the reporting available only showed the AP and AR reports. And we wanted to bring in the cash detail, and to avoid having another manual input for the various subs, to do for this. We ended up using derivative rules. So this was actually, it was a past roundtable session that I went back to between derivative rules and then the other was data buffers, and just kind of kept rewatching, trying to kind of get the detail that was needed, so that what we were able to do is we took cash accounts and we had kind of the account noted in our chart of accounts of what currency it was in, so that we could take that data, bring it over into our treasury scenario and translate it into the currency we wanted. So if we had a functional British pound entity that had a euro bank account, we would take that British pound value out of actuals, bring it over into the treasury scenario in British pounds. So that helped avoid a lot of manual inputs for the various subsidiaries. And that's kind of the key thing, is we had to kind of have a unique process for each sub based on the data that was that was available. So it's a lot of, what I've kind of learned with this, and I've been in, the consolidation space for some 15 years with different software is, it's really nice to be able to have some back and forth, have that conversation, to not feel like you're on an island. And that's where, with kind of being able to bounce, and Daniel's been really helpful with bouncing these ideas off of, how do I do this, or what's this, or, some of the things that I would have never thought of that, really kind of helped with our process. So we've kind of used, some of this, the things that we have learned through this project and using them in other areas when we're trying to kind of build out the functionality and improve our end user experience.
And something you said that I, kind of want to highlight, just OneStream, how there's so many ways to do something. And that really is true. Like there's rarely one way to do something. There's normally 2 or 3 or 5 different ways you can accomplish it. And that's kind of where the heart of the roundtable came from. So we have an internal center of excellence that we created basically so we as consultants could go and discuss things and talk about best practices. And, we kind of were thinking, well, we don't want this just to be internal. We want this to be within the greater OneStream community. And that's kind of where the whole roundtable came from. And it sounds like you and Adrian were both paying attention on the derivative rules day. So we'll have to note that as a top session.
Yeah, it was very good. That and the data buffers, Daniel, those are probably my 2 favorite sessions.
I think that's awesome, Jen. Like Ryan just said, there's probably 10 different ways you can approach a problem, and having somebody or a group of people, not just us at BDA, but the other folks like Adrian and others that are part of ERT that you guys can bounce ideas off of, that use things like derivative rules in their applications, right? And a huge benefit. And ultimately, it just, of those different ways to do it, you just kind of have to figure out which is the best way for your particular app design and what's going to be the most performant. And yeah, love your comment about the we're more doers, right? And you kind of went back and rewatched those trainings multiple times. So that's great.
Yeah, I was also just going to add, Jen, from what I got, is that the ERT definitely gave you a platform to bounce ideas and hear best practices. But what I really like from your story is that you've gained independence in your system. So you are now building in-house, less reliance on external support, and building up that knowledge internally, which I think is quite key for any organization. You want to become less dependent and have, the team build up as much as possible to take it further.
Yeah, that's always been kind of a key, and it's great with our group here that they're all wanting to learn more. We want to do, and we love working with you guys at Black Diamond, but it's kind of we want to own our system and make it better.
So what's next? What's next on the list for you, Jen?
What's next? So there was actually the dynamic cubes was one that we got a little taste of recently that I love to kind of further go on. But a lot of our actual approach to the upcoming year is actually kind of taking a step back and slowing down. We had a long list of things that we've been doing over the 3 years. And I think we really want to focus on how we can make the experience better for our end users. Whether that's getting rid of some reports that aren't being used, maybe tweaking, some dashboards, some views, so that they are, and trying not to go at this breakneck speed that we have been over these 3 years, and saying how can we make this better for our end users? Because I love OneStream and I'm in it all the time, but we want to make sure that our end users have as good of an experience with OneStream.
That's good.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Jen. And we will turn it over to Cameron.
Hello, my name is Cameron Perceful. I am a senior software engineer at Edward Jones. I'm on the financial planning and analysis team. Edward Jones has had OneStream live for almost 3 years now. I believe it was the end of 2022. We went live with it. I have only been with Edward Jones for about 2 years. So I came in when OneStream had been live for about a year. Prior to this, I worked in the financial planning and analysis space for about 7 years. Although this was my first exposure to OneStream, it's been really interesting learning the platform. We're using it on my team. We're responsible for the planning aspects of OneStream, right? We have OpEx, we have people planning. Also have colleagues on the core finance side that have implemented account reconciliations, transaction matching, all of that stuff. And the roundtable has really been great, especially for me as someone who is newer to this specific platform, but familiar with, Hyperion or TM1, to learn the particulars of OneStream and maybe not exactly best practices, but the different practices and how they can apply right to specific situations. And in particular, I wanted to talk about transformation rules, because this is something that the roundtable proved really, really valuable for in a current project that we're working on. We have this ask to build out a new cube to look at data by market and region, right? We're a financial firm, so that kind of view of data is pretty important. And we went into this with this ask of, okay, we have our journal line entries from PeopleSoft, right? I've worked with Smart Integration Connector quite a bit since I've been with Jones. We're bringing in these journal line details, and we have this rather complex mapping requirement for how these get mapped to the entity structure. And the way it took shape was, okay, this is going to be based on 3 data points in this database, but those data points don't necessarily end up in a dimension. So we're not mapping them to a dimension, but we need to be able to reference them in transformation rules. And I'd researched a couple ways to do this, and it kind of just worked out that the roundtable had a session on transformation rules, and what was particularly good there were the attribute dimensions within cubes. So using that, we were able to work the cube to bring in the data into these various attribute dimensions. So we had access to the data in the transformation rules, right? But we didn't have to map it to dimensionality that we didn't need, which allowed us to have, whether they're composite rules or a mask rule, can go grab those attribute dimensions and use that information to map and say, okay, if I have one entry may have a branch, one entry may have a cost center, one entry may have neither, and it needs to do something if it's a Canadian affiliate or a US affiliate. So we were able to create these transformation rules to look at these various attributes and run through that logic of, okay, if this attribute is populated, use this for entity. If this attribute is not populated, go to this attribute, use that to map the entity. So that was a very particular helpful session for us, and really let us nail down this process for bringing in these actuals for this market management effort. It's also been super helpful, for people like me being new. We've been able to have a session with an architect to talk about kind of good practices for building out new hierarchies, new entity dimensions for this effort. Understanding at a better level what maybe how to us it seemed like, is 2,000 cost centers a lot for a UD1 if we want to put it in UD1? The roundtable let us talk to an architect and kind of go through our thinking of, this is what we want to do, and kind of get the expertise of someone who's been in OneStream a lot longer. You know, so we can know, like, yeah, actually, we can put a couple thousand cost centers in UD1 and be pretty successful with that. And that's been really, really helpful.
Looking back holistically at your whole OneStream journey, is there anything you would tell yourself going into it if you could go back in time?
Good question.
That is a good question. Maybe do the roundtable sooner. As you know, yeah, right. As a brand new person, you know, the things I have learned about, you know, I've mentioned I worked with Smart Integration Connector a lot. It very much started as me just kind of poking through it and figuring it out. And I know a lot more than when I started. I would love to be able to go back and, you know, and I can go back and I can change the code. I can make it more efficient, but I could go back and, yeah, really give myself that knowledge of how to use it properly. And like the information we learned with our session with the architect about kind of managing hierarchies and good practices for setting them up, like that would be a great thing to go back and relook at our early hierarchies and maybe build them out differently.
I don't think I'd feel too bad. I think every one of us on this roundtable wishes we could go back in time, and with the knowledge we have now, and
yeah,
and really to what Ryan said, you know, when we started that Center of Excellence internally at BDA, it really cut down on that learning curve for us. We found that just everybody could share knowledge and you weren't on your own. And that was really the intent of the ERT, is start to arm people with that knowledge up front. You know, and hopefully you kind of find value in that, because that's really the goal of it.
Yeah, it's great being able to learn, and, you know, two years isn't a lot of time in OneStream, right? So
Right.
it's great to have that kind of collective learning and the ability to bounce ideas off of people and questions. You know, it's a much better experience than learning in sort of a silo and just Googling and reading documentation, right? Like which is you know, as a software engineer, like, I'm certainly used to that, but to have the community is a huge benefit.
Yeah.
Agree. And like I've been in the OneStream world for a little over 6 years now, but hopefully I don't get in trouble for saying this. I always joke that I feel really bad for the first client whose reports I built because it wasn't great. I did not work at BDA at that time, so you know, someone else. But no, it's really been great. Like, and BDA really has fostered, you know, creating a community and like learning within the OneStream space. So that's something I really value of being part of, you know, Black Diamond. And I think some of, you know, you guys as clients and working with us have seen that as well.
You know, there's always something new to learn. I mean, I've been working in it almost a little over 8 years now. But, you know, things like somebody brought up the dynamic cubes. I mean, they just threw that at us, and all of a sudden there's a whole new toy to go learn about. Just nonstop learning in the environment. But we all look for ways to kind of cut down on that learning curve.
Yeah, I think that's a 1000% true. If we're, you know, if any one of us or you guys are probably telling someone else to, well, you may want to think about it doing it a different way, most of that experience is born out of pain, right? It means you did it that way once and then realized what limitations you ran into later and said, oh, I wish I would have been able to go back, like Cameron said, and do it a little bit differently. So yeah, I love that aspect of the ERT, and kind of learning from each other in that way is really valuable. You know, get ahead of some of those things early on and start off on the right foot versus trying to bang your head up against a wall for a little while and realize and then wish later you wish it would have done it different.
I'll extend that question to Jen and Adrian. Do you have anything you would tell yourself going back in time?
One of the things that I still struggle with a little bit right now is from a reporting perspective. building hierarchies or handling stuff within the reports and trying to figure out the right balance there between what makes sense in terms of adding additional hierarchies to your environment versus just handling it as a reporting solution. And there's pros and cons with both, but again, I still find that even now, there's never one quite right answer. It's the famous "it depends," and it's still something that I struggle with when people are saying, well, you know, this report is not behaving the way another one is, because one is more hierarchy driven and one is more some customizations or custom calculations and stuff like that. So that's still an area that, you know, for me has always been a struggle in terms of balancing the maintenance associated with the hierarchies with the functionality that it provides, versus if the report's going to be a one-off report, then potentially doesn't justify hierarchies to support it. So something that sort of came to mind for me.
Yeah, you stole mine, because that would have been at the top of my list too. But to kind of add another is, I think when we, kind of started our implementation, started moving forward, is I don't want to say that we were siloed with the planning side and the consolidation side, but I didn't take as much notice of the planning side. I was more focused on the consolidation side because that was the side I owned. And so I think what, the takeaway from that was, our consolidation users, find benefit, are doing pretty well, but some of our planning users, I don't think they have adapted or fell in love with OneStream as much as I would have hoped. And so I think we need to, kind of do a little extra work to get them back into really liking the system. I think that's probably the area I'd highlight.
I were to flip it back to Cameron. So Cameron, love having you on the ERT. Continue to show up every week with questions. But if we were to take your system and if you were to list your pain points that you are dealing with at this point, what is some of the first topics that you'd like to address? Is it performance, or is it breaking down the complexity of your system and how it's been built up to this date? What is it that would be top of the list that stakeholders will be tracing?
Yeah, I think it would be breaking down the complexities. We have, maybe an unusual amount of reorganizations that go on that mean we need to kind of rework our hierarchies, right? And having dealt with that now, it would be nice to know, like, well, how with that in mind, like how could the hierarchies be designed differently? I think that would be an interesting pain point to explore.
Yeah, definitely. And I think ERT, as much as it gives everybody access to the experts at BDA, it also creates a community within the users to hear how other clients are doing it, if we could consider doing it differently. So it's also sometimes nice to hear from almost your peers and not just always the experts all the time. So it's a bit of a twofold approach, which works so well.
Jen, it looked like you maybe had an answer to that question too.
No, when Varosha said performance, that's actually probably one of our users' probably biggest complaints is performance. That's why the prospect of dynamic cubes is such a huge thing for us, because when I said trying to win back some of those the users that haven't really adopted OneStream, if things take a while to process or things like that, that's not going to help. And it has, I think I mentioned to our director of FP&A dynamic cubes that consolidations weren't needed. I didn't have to say anything more than that. he was just like, okay, I'm on board. What do we need to do? So it's, yeah, I just kind of had to laugh with when she said performance, because if I probably surveyed our users, especially on the planning side, that would probably be a big issue.
We just had a question come through the Q&A. What are dynamic cubes? What do they do? Wants to
Wants to
jump
take
in.
that.
Daniel's still on here. He can take it or I can.
Who's going to take that? I can take some of that, and then Damon, you can tell me everything I get wrong as usual. Dynamic cubes. I think going forwards, almost every app that's probably been designed in the past is going to be designed differently. If we could go back, if dynamic cubes existed back when we first started designing OneStream, we would do a lot of things differently. So dynamic cubes, there are a couple of arms to them. One is the data that gets presented to the user no longer has to be in a cube. It can be relational data. It can be, millions and millions of records. It has no impact to a degree on the data unit size. The other part of it is it comes with dynamic dimensions as well. So kind of gone are the days where, if we wanted to do some product reporting and we wanted it to be in a cube view, we used to have to build out a dimension with all of your products in, and then over time, obviously, that gets larger and larger, and your data unit sizes get bigger, or the data gets more sparse. We don't have to do that anymore. So we can leave that data in relational tables. We can even leave it back in a source system. So I saw a use case, and I was helping someone with something where they have data in a data warehouse, and we spun up data and presented it in a cube view, and that data did not get stored anywhere in OneStream. And we could also show it at multiple levels up different hierarchies by doing clever work in SQL, and then dynamically building out the dimension members only for the ones that we needed. OneStream then presents that data in a cube view, and when the user closes it, it all gets thrown away. So it's really a way of being able to quickly spin up kind of dimensional architecture in the system and present data to the users in that standard cube view format without having to go and do all of the build that we had before. So setting up cubes, setting up dimensions, all of the members in them, having to think about scenario types and data unit sizes and so on.
Yeah, the kind of a practical example, we have a solution for compensation planning. And if we had dynamic cubes when we first started, it would have been a beautiful thing. But so much of the work that solution does is maintaining metadata. So every time you add an employee by name or you add a position, it's constantly adding and sometimes removing things from dimensions. It's building the metadata, but it just clutters up things when you've got thousands of employee records in there. With what we're trying to develop now with the dynamic cube is that you don't need that anymore, because so much of that data is actually stored relationally. It can go fetch what it needs, show you the list of employees that belong to a cost center or a company, etc. And then that doesn't actually need to reside in your dimensions, and the data doesn't actually need to reside in a cube anywhere.
Yeah. From a transformation kind of perspective, it's really exciting, for me, because, if you heard Cameron talk about, hey, things are reorging all the time, like that's a big pain point. And Jen's like, what about performance? And what I hear is that, users and our customers consistently want access to that deeper, broader, bigger level of information that they have in their data warehouses or in their ERPs. And historically, the balance has always been trying to strike between performance and level of detail, right? Like, how do you do that without sacrificing user experience in that process? And I think that I'm kind of really on the precipice of some cool stuff, with OneStream to kind of help us solve those types of business challenges in a way that, gives them access to all that detail, but also does so in a really performant and nice way for the user experience as well. So you really, kind of like Jen said, you can't have one without the other type of thing. If you've got all the detail, but the performance is terrible, no one's going to use it. So really, as they continue to evolve the product, it just gets better and better and gives us more opportunities to really kind of drive high ROI, high impact value to our clients through the implementations that we provide.
And I think another part of OneStream where we're seeing use case for dynamic cube and dynamic dimensions is ESG. So a big part of ESG is volumes of data, it's invoice level data, site level data. We're talking about 800,000 factors. So this is really where Dynamic Cube Services is solving for that and giving us the information that we need to write to the cube, but storing all of those relational level data. So very excited to see what's to come with ESG and Dynamic Cube Services together.
Fabulous. Does anybody have any other questions? Feel free to pop it into the Q&A.
Adrian's probably going to ask me about dynamic cube services for RevRec right now that we're working on, right? I see you thinking about it right now.
Yeah, I think Ashwin to a certain degree sort of was thinking along those lines. And again,
yeah,
you know, I think there's tremendous potential for it. It's unfortunate it probably didn't come out 9 months or so ago, you know, where it might have been able to be factored in a little bit more. And you know, it may be a situation where at some point we'll circle back to the solution and figure out what changes might need to be made and take advantage of dynamic cubes a little bit more. So, but yeah, in terms of, you know, the relational data and the struggle we sort of had between the data in the cubes and the relational data that didn't make sense in the cubes, but the users needed access to it. It did require a variety of gymnastics that we ended up going through that sounds like dynamic cubes may have solved a lot of those issues.
We have a few minutes left. We got a question that came into the Q&A, and I think this is a good one for Jen, Cameron, and Adrian. What does the future of OneStream look like for you and your companies?
So I'll go first. For me, we're still implementing a lot of different solutions. So I'm actually looking forward to a point where we can stabilize a little bit in terms of, you know, instead of adding new things, really, you know, getting the things that we have implemented, you know, running as well as they can, as opposed to sort of the crawl walk aspect that we're potentially going through. But that said, you know, even after the 3 or 4 projects that are on our roadmap right now, I think there's probably 3 or 4 more other ones that will follow after them. So for me, you know, I can see potentially a 5-year horizon in terms of being able to add a variety of different projects that sort of tap into all that OneStream offers. And then hopefully at that point, you know, a little bit more stabilization and being able to sort of take a step back and say, okay, what are the things that are not running as efficiently as they should be, and sort of being able to spend a little bit of time to fine tune some of those areas.
Yeah, I can go. See, I think the possibilities, you know, for us as a company, AI has been a big thing in the upcoming year. So that is something that, you know, we're looking to really take advantage of, and kind of growing it as a user base. You know, we have more than doubled our user base. And there are other areas that I think we can still provide value to the business, whether it be, you know, tax solution, ESG has, you know, sometimes been on the table. I think there are areas that aren't just finance, that we can, you know, look and say, hey, what can we do to help make our business better?
Yeah, and for us, you know, there's a couple things, you know, in the near future coming down the pipeline, right? One of them being we're going to start working with Allocations Manager, and bringing some allocations into OneStream. But then we're also working on kind of the future state of our HR and ERP systems, and that's dictating new interfaces, new types of interfaces that we haven't done before. So that's something I'm focused on quite a bit, is connecting to Azure Data Lake, right? Connecting to Linux file systems to programmatically pull files from these different sources rather than direct database connections. And then beyond that, you know, I'm an engineer, so I want to look at like let's look at tech debt. Like, how can we take what we have now, make it more efficient, make it cleaner, make it more performant? You know, that's something I always want to spend some time on.
Well, thank you all. We have a few minutes left. If anybody has any last minute questions, the folks at home, feel free to pop it in the Q&A. But I did want to give a huge thank you to our customers that joined today, Jen, Adrian, and Cameron. We sincerely appreciate you joining us. And as always, thank you to our Expert Roundtable team. This is just some of the team that was able to join us today. If anybody has any questions about anything that we covered, want to learn more about BDA, and our Expert Roundtable team, please do not hesitate to reach out. I will be sending a recording of this to everybody who was here today and who registered. So yeah, thank you all again. If there aren't any other questions, we will happily give you a few minutes of your day back.